There's a few ways you could be wasting your resources, and these are the 3 main methods how to identify these situations. Sometimes it's easy to forget that even while Genshin Impact is an open world game, most of our activities shift towards domains when you reach the end game. And while the current biggest challenge we have is the Spiral Abyss, it still demands a lot of preparation, especially once you get to the final floors of the Abyssal Moon Spire. And everyone can agree that building 2 teams to take on the whole challenge can feel a little daunting, especially with all the restrictions we have with the amount of daily activities and resin refreshment rates, that it becomes hard to focus on a single goal when there's so many characters that you need to equip with not only decent artifacts but weapons as well. And one of the most common strategies for team building focuses first on getting a lot of good artifacts for one character before moving on to the next one. And while this is an excellent way to approach resource management and character growth, one consideration that's worth looking into would be to optimize the artifact domains you're going to be farming. And you've probably noticed that most of the domains fall under the category of specialist artifacts, those that specifically only focus on powering up a single element, and for the most part, that's probably the best place to farm for artifacts if you're looking to grow a hero in that particular element. However, if you're someone who still hasn't built at least a single team of characters for endgame content, then you might want to reconsider doing these specialist domains and instead spend your resin on the 2 multi-purpose domains. And these 2 domains are the Clear Pool and the Mountain Cavern, where you can get the Bloodstain and Noblesse Oblige artifact sets, while the other one is Valley of Remembrance that features Anemo and healing artifacts. The first one, which is the Clear Pool and Mountain Cavern, not only drops one of the most universal artifact sets in the game, but also provides very decent 4-star artifacts, which are the Scholars and Gambler sets. These are especially good if you're having bad luck with the 5-star artifacts and can be used in a variety of ways. Now when it comes to 5-star artifacts, Bloodstained Chivalry offers an excellent 2-set bonus for your physical damage dealers, and while the 4-set bonus is more specialized, it can be utilized by few of the characters. However, the one that keeps on giving is the Noblesse Oblige, which works with nearly every character in the game. Since the 2-set bonus is so universal, it tends to give really good results even if you don't know what artifact build to pursue for your character. And the 4-set bonus is a godsend when you're in the process of creating strong support characters. Now the second domain is also a great place to grab at least one full set of Viridescent Veneer. Even if the stats on these pieces will be bad, having this artifact set on one of your Anemo characters, no matter what current state they are in, can provide a strong resistance debuff on your enemies, and the crowd control capabilities they provide is something else that's very appealing. The same could also be said about Maiden's Beloved. You don't need to get the best stats or even relevant stats on these artifacts as long as you can get the bonus on one of your healers. So the beauty of this particular domain is that it's not demanding as the other ones, since it's clear that from the get-go these artifacts are for utility characters which need the least amount of resources to be made into useful teammates. Also, if you want to get help on which artifacts to focus on, make sure to follow us on Twitter, link in the description. In short, while domains that focus on awarding single element artifacts are great, it could be a better place to start with the multi-purpose domains instead, and this can be an especially effective strategy if you've just reached rank 45 and are looking to get some 5-star artifacts going. So with these domains you can get a bigger variety of useful artifacts. It's always a satisfying feeling to open your inventory and see all those artifacts lying in your bag, waiting to be used for an exciting opportunity to make your character stronger. But making rash decisions without a methodical approach can quickly make those artifacts disappear and you ending up with a mediocre result. And there's a thing called Sunkost Fallacy effect, where the main principle it teaches is that people who invest into something makes them believe that they now have a justification to keep investing without taking into account the results. Or to put it simply, you've already leveled this mediocre artifact to level 16, so why not just get it to level 20 as well? And one of the best ways to address this issue would be by having an acceptable threshold for results. For example, getting an artifact to level 4 or 8 and then stopping to assess if it's worth continuing could be one of the thresholds without wasting more of your resources. In fact, if you have an artifact that has one good substat only and you end up increasing one of the irrelevant substats at level 4, it's already a good case of just reusing it as experience material instead, since you only have 25% chance of increasing the substat you want. Of course, there are a few important exceptions, and that applies to elemental damage goblets and circlets with critical damage and rating, since getting these artifacts with mentioned main stats is already expensive enough, so throwing them away just because of bad substats is not something that you can afford even after playing the game for months. Now that you have mastered the art of self-restraint when it comes to leveling artifacts, the next thing that's important to consider if you truly need the last 4 levels of a 5-star artifact, because it just so happens that the developers decided to make the cost of leveling a 5-star artifact from level 16 to 20 nearly the same amount it takes to get it from 1 to 16. This means that if you're especially struggling with equipping everyone in your team with decent artifacts, maybe it's a better choice to forego the level 20 goal and instead have a newly raised level 16 artifact that's ready to be used by someone who really needs it. This hopefully gives you insight into how you can manage your artifacts more carefully without overspending your resources on them, and the idea of having a threshold for an acceptable artifact should give you an idea on how to save up Mora and fodder artifacts, not to mention give you a chance to end up with a better artifact. Of course, things happen randomly and you might get very unlucky too many times, so settling with what you have is still a good decision, since a mediocre artifact is still better than a low-level artifact. Even after playing the game for months, going through your daily quests and routes can lead you to discovering new chests or secrets. It truly feels like there's a never-ending supply of hidden rewards to collect, so even if you go out to explore, there's a chance you will get some useful loot. And one of the things that gacha games like to do is present the players with the opportunity to save time and get the loot immediately by visiting the in-game shop. And Genshin Impact is no exception to this matter with their own Paimon's Bargains shop, which thankfully has a number of obvious options to pick from. Now, it's already clear that getting intertwined and acquaint fates is a no-brainer choice for everyone who's playing the game, but once you're done buying these, you will end up with a leftover sum that could be used for your other purchases. If this happens, then always make sure to keep at least 750 Stardust in your savings for the next month of new batch of acquaint and intertwined fates, and then for the leftover Stardust, if any, use it to acquire Mora. The other things inside this shop are pretty much bad value, since you can obtain these materials from fighting the monsters in the world, and now that 1.1 introduced magical Crystallore sites, which contain the regular crystal ores as well, not to mention the now respawn daily, you can gather a lot of ore by just playing the game. And for the adventurous experience cards, these typically aren't really a good choice unless you're desperate to level up your character, but this should only be purchased if you have an abundant amount of Stardust remaining. Finally, the hardest decision making goes into Star Glitter shop, which heavily depends on everyone's situation, and there's not much advice that can be given aside from the obvious fact that you should not use this extremely valuable currency on monster materials unless you're a heavy spender in the game. But to summarize, doing artifact domains that only benefit one of your characters can be a setback if you're just starting to build your team for endgame, and it's better to obtain artifacts from multi-purpose domains that provide several useful artifact sets that can be shared with a lot of other teammates. This of course becomes less important once you have multiple characters equipped with decent artifacts, but for those who are struggling to keep your teams powerful and work with limited amount of resin, it can be a valid strategy to pursue. And when it comes to leveling your artifacts, make sure not to become a victim of the sunken cost fallacy effect and only improve artifacts that provide promising substats. Also, consider if you should really spend a lot of experience to take that 5-star artifact from level 16 to 20 if you could instead get a new level 16 artifact for almost the same amount. Finally, Paimon's Bargains is a great place to grab more fates to get more wishes, but it's also a place where you can speed up your leveling process, although it's only recommended to purchase select few items unless you're someone who spends a good amount of money in the game. Enjoyed the video? Don't forget to subscribe to our channel by enabling the bell notification on, and make sure to gently press the like button. And if you want more news and guides, follow us on Twitter, link in the description. Thank you for watching.